All right, guys, we're moving right along. We're on toddlers, social and emotional development, and you have a page in your green packet that's labeled the same. So here we go. We'll just get right into it. Number one says list and explain Erickson's stage for the toddler. If you guys remember, for the infant, it was trust versus mistrust. Well, now for the toddler stage, he has a different theory and a different stage that they go through, and it's autonomy. Autonomy is how you say that, versus shame and doubt. And again, we want to focus on this positive thing and the positive side of it, which is autonomy. And so you need to understand what that means, right? You know what shame and doubt means. Autonomy is the opposite. It's focusing on developing a greater sense of self-control. Like, I can do it myself. I can do this. One way to remember it, it's me or my, okay? It ends with a ton of me, but it says my. So it's all about their independence. I can do it. Remember, I told you this year is all about independence and curiosity on the first day we started toddlers. So this idea, just like you see this little guy, he wants to pour this milk by himself. So whatever you can do to help foster those kinds of things, and when they fail, maybe he spills all over, that you don't go crazy. You just say, that's okay, that happens. And also try to create things they can do on their own that they can be successful. Maybe this is too big for him to be pouring out of, or too full. Maybe there's a different container you could put it in, or he could do it over by the sink if you don't want him to spill all over. So those things all have to do with autonomy.
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
Are you putting makeup on?
Yeah?
Can I put your makeup on?
Yeah?
Can I put it? Can I do it? You want to do it?
Do it.
Let me do it.
No.
Let me do it.
Mine.
Katie,
Do
can...
it.
Okay.
No,
You put it on your lip.
No.
You put it on your lip. Let me do it.
No.
Okay.
I don't go.
Katie.
Okay, so you saw a perfect example. That little girl, she wanted to do it by herself. And anything mom wanted to try to do or try to do it for mom to do it herself, no. She said, Mom, you do yourself and I'll do me. No, I want to do it. Okay, so whoops. Here we go. How can we encourage the feeling of autonomy in children? This is number 2. Allow them to do things on their own. See this little girl? She's going to order off the menu. You know, she feels like a big kid. And maybe she can't. Maybe mom and dad need to help guide her, but at least that helps. Also, give them legitimate choices as often as possible. It can't always happen, but give choices. And that doesn't mean just leave it wide open. You can say, do you want waffles or do you want pancakes for breakfast? As long as you're willing to offer both. If you're not willing to make waffles or pancakes, then don't offer it. Do you want Fruit Loops or do you want Cheerios or whatever? Do you want to wear the blue shirt or the green shirt? But giving them a whole array of things is too much. They can't handle it. I kind of feel that way. I really like In-N-Out. You guys know In-N-Out burgers because they only have a couple things on the menu. I don't go there and go crazy trying to decide what I want. So I kind of understand how little kids feel. Okay, also make the environment safe so that you're not running around telling them, no, don't stop, don't do that. You're going to hurt yourself kind of all the time. Also praise them when they do something that is right, when they do the desired or the appropriate behavior. Great job, you just did that. And I would add to that, how does that make you feel? Also allow them to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes and it's really okay. And don't expect them to be perfect. It takes a long, long time to learn all that they're learning.
When your toddler's finding her way in the world, she needs reassurance. She relies on feedback to know when she's doing the right thing, as well as gentle guidance and correction when things go astray. Here are 5 ways to help create a confident toddler who will grow up feeling secure and resilient. 1. Let her know that she's special and valued, even when things go wrong. Trying and having a go is the most important thing of all. 2. Allow her to make safe decisions for herself, such as which t-shirt she'd like to wear today. This helps her build a sense of autonomy and lets her know that her feelings and thoughts are important to you. 3. Show her you're proud of her when she does well, particularly in those tricky scenarios that toddlers find difficult, like sharing or saying sorry. Self-control is not easy for any toddler to master, and nothing will make her prouder than knowing you can see that she did her best. 4. Of course, she won't always be a perfect, well-behaved princess. She wouldn't be a toddler otherwise. Sometimes some extra guidance and teaching are necessary, but try not to use threats or words like bad or awful. 5. Questions are a great way to help your toddler think about her behaviour. Try things like, how did your sister feel when you hit her? How could you be kinder to your sister? Or, what's a nicer way to ask for something we want? Your little one still has a long way to go before she can navigate the world on her own. But every little step is a wonderful thing. Yes, even when they're being a handful. Oh, and sometimes you need a dose of confidence too. We all have our moments, but you're doing a better job than you think. And remember, you don't have to be the best parent in the world. You just have to be the best parent in their world.
Love that. All right. So you got a lot of good advice in actually watching children in action. So number 3 talks about egocentrism and being egocentric. We have talked about this before in our last unit, and that for us as adults and young adults, it's not a compliment, but it's something that they go through, and they become during this stage. They become less egocentric. They haven't mastered not being that way yet, but they do start to realize others' feelings, and they're less egocentric than they were when they were an infant, and they can show caring and that they care about you and your feelings by giving others what make them feel better. So you see this little boy giving some dandelions to somebody. Just, how kind, how sweet. He doesn't know they're wheat, right? Or a child may bring you a Band-Aid or a blankie. Maybe you're crying because you broke up with a boy or a girl, and they bring you a Band-Aid. The Band-Aid's not going to fix it, but you see, in their world, Band-Aids fix everything, and they don't understand that this is an emotional hurt. So they are less egocentric than they were when they were infants.
Funny tonight here, America Strong. A little boy and a simple question. Who needs a hug? It started with one simple hug. 2-year-old Jude Sassby, right there in the white shirt, walking up to a total stranger to give him a hug. He turns around, surprised. And then Jude walks up to this mom, sitting there in the grass, another total stranger. Jude's dad, Nick, was filming the whole thing. It was a chili cook-off and bluegrass festival in Atlanta. And once Jude's parents told him it was time to go, it turned out he was in no hurry. There he is, searching for another person to hug, arms wide open. This group of women each getting a hug. And then you can hear the people off in the distance asking, free hugs?
Free hugs for everybody. I know, hugs for everyone.
And then Jude, it seemed, was on a mission to finally find someone his own size. Little boy bridging the divide, now seen nearly 30 million times. We love Jude. We could all use a hug. Thanks for watching here at Tuesday Night ABC Election coverage with our powerhouse.
Absolutely. We could all use a hug, especially right now. What a great thing when we come out of isolation and be able to hug each other. That would have been awesome if he'd have done that then, right? But very tender. What makes him feel good, he thinks that makes everybody else feel good. And in that case, it really does, right? Okay, so number 4, explain socialization in toddlers. They do like to socialize. It's a little bit harder for them because they don't know how to interact quite yet when they're really, really young toddlers. But play groups and interacting with other people and grandparents, aunts and uncles, neighbors, people that you trust, that is a really, really positive thing to help their socialization.
It's the adorable video of toddler besties that's melting hearts across planet Earth.
I know, my night is complete.
The video captures 2-year-olds Maxwell and Finnegan running towards each other, arms wide open in their New York City neighborhood. They meet in a great big hug.
You are just adorable.
Maxwell's dad posted the moment on Facebook. This is just so beautiful. If we could all be like this. The hug is clearly striking a chord. It has millions of views. The boys met 1 year ago and have become inseparable. They hold hands whenever they're together and even have their own language that no one else understands. The video ends as the boys run off together towards their next adventure.
Super cute, right? So you can see that socialization, and they, like I said, they even have their own language. So very important to let them socialize, and it's good for the parents to allow the children to socialize because it gives them a chance to socialize a little bit too. All right, the next one talks about how do they express their emotions. It's spontaneously and dramatically, like instantly. All of a sudden, they just may come, like you saw in those videos, come and hug you or someone else, and it's usually pretty dramatic. Well, so are the negative feelings and the negative side of it. They can be fairly spontaneous and fairly dramatic.
Why are you sad?
Because I'm going to get married.
Because you don't want to get married?
No.
But you're only 3. Someday you'll get married, but not for a long time.
I'll miss you guys.
You're gonna miss us? I'll miss you too, bud. But you have a long time before you have to get married. You're only 3. Okay? You don't want to have a wife?
I want you to be my wife.
I can't be your wife, baby. I'm your mommy.
I just want to call you my wife.
You don't want to call me your wife?
You are my mom, but you are but you are.
You want me to be your wife? But I can't be your wife, baby. You're gonna find somebody. Just like Daddy found mommy.
He's sad.
He's sad? Oh no. Why is he sad?
He fell off.
Oh my goodness.
He fell off.
Oh no. Did he fall in the water?
Yeah.
He's okay though. Look, he's waking up. See, get up, dinosaur.
Yeah, dinosaur.
Oh, does that make a Gentry sad?
That made me sad. The dinosaurs making me sad.
Oh, but look, he's fine now. He's all better. Right?
He wants his mama.
Oh.
Say, Mama.
What happened?
It's gone.
Oh, it was gone?
Yeah.
Did you flush it?
Yeah.
Okay. Say bye, Hope.
Bye.
Okay, so a couple of things that you saw in that video. First of all, the cute little boy that wanted his mom to be his wife. And, you know, he couldn't say it right, but mom just repeated it back correctly. That was awesome and so tender and sweet. This cute little girl, maybe she just wants her mama. You know, who knows the whole situation, but so tender to watch. And then with this last little boy, that's a normal thing with potty training, that, you know, it's part of their body, really. They don't really quite understand that it came from their body, and then they see it in the toilet, and then they have to flush it, and it has to disappear, and it disappears forever. And that's something they don't quite get and quite understand. So kind of a fun little thing to see and something to think about, that to explain to them and let them know what's going on and what's happening and what their feelings are. The mom in the second part with the little girl crying with the dinosaur movie, she also labeled her feelings. You're sad, you're feeling sad. Okay. All right. So toddlers' anxieties and fears that they have is number 6, and they're very, very real, because just like they believe everything we want them to believe, like around Christmas time and Easter time and when they lose teeth, right? You know what I'm talking about. If you watched the video yesterday, you do. They also believe the other side. So witches and goblins and ghosts and things that we have during Halloween time and just other times, noises and all sorts of things. They're very frightening to them. So they can be afraid by or scared or be anxious of loud noises or sudden movements, any large or looming objects that might be in the house that they don't understand, strangers for sure, we'll talk about that, and separation from mom and dad, and even things from their body, like you saw about being potty trained just a second ago. And changes in their house can cause issues, like, you know, you change the house around and they can't handle it. So helping them overcome those. On number 7, try to eliminate, and as much as you can, things that they could be afraid of, and help them learn how to manage it, like water, just a little bit at a time. Don't ever force. Don't avoid things just because they make the child anxious, but don't have too many things all at once when it makes them too anxious and they're just anxious over everything. And let them know it's okay to be scared. Express the positive. Be realistic, but express the positive things about it and your expectations, and make sure they're not too large and not, you know, in your world and not small enough for the baby's world. Respect the child's feelings. Don't empower their anxieties and their fears. Don't scare them, and don't, you know, things that they're afraid of, don't tease with that. Sometimes people do, and they're just trying to have fun, but it's not fun for a toddler or for a child. Don't ask leading questions that cause and anticipate fear. Like, does that scare you? Is that scary to you? You know, change it and say, this looks like something that maybe we can do. You know, if it's like going in the water, and making it more positive, but don't lead them into a negative thing. Also, don't reinforce their fears. Don't give them positive reinforcement, and make it enjoyable, like we talked about in our other unit. Don't reinforce them. And also think things through with the child. Help them kind of reason, even though they may not. Help them reason a little bit. One thing I did when my kids were young in this stage, because everything's very literal. We were finishing our basement, and they had played down there with unfinished basement. It was framed, but it wasn't finished. And so when we were getting ready to finish it, their bedrooms were going to be downstairs. And I took them down there, and I showed them, see the wood, see the headers, see the 2x4s, and they go up. Now, I explained it much differently than I am to you, but basically what I did is explain that to them, and had their dad go walk around upstairs, and they could hear and see that the wood would creak a little bit. And I showed them the pipe, that this is the water pipe, and this is the sewer pipe, and it's going to be behind sheetrock that's going to be painted, but it's still going to be there. So I had their dad turn on the water and flush the toilet. And when they heard those sounds, they would know that that's what it was, that it wasn't something that they needed to be afraid of. So I made it very literal for them, instead of encouraging their anxiety and fears by not. So things that you can do to show them in this pre-operational stage will help with their fears and anxieties and emotional issues, and also model healthy ways of handling fears and anxieties. Okay.
Your toddler is fearless in some ways. He or she will run, climb and tumble, gathering bumps and bruises along the way. But toddlers and preschoolers are also irrationally fearful of many things. Starting around 3 years old, your son or daughter's imagination begins to blossom. But they can't always separate fantasy from reality. For this reason, it's normal that certain fears may develop. Fear of a creature living under the bed or in the closet is common, as is fear of the dark. To alleviate these anxieties, place a nightlight in your toddler's bedroom. You may also make a show of checking for monsters or getting rid of them with a special trick. A favorite blanket or stuffed animal may also help relieve his nighttime anxiety. Your child may also be afraid of cats and dogs. Don't force him to interact with them, and let him know you'll protect him. Then, if it's a dog or cat you know, you can reassure him that they are not dangerous by touching the animal yourself. Loud noises, baths, even a vacuum, anything can become frightening to a 3 or 4-year-old. But no matter how irrational your child's fear seems to you, don't dismiss or belittle it. Sometimes, it might help if you can figure out what's triggering the fear. Is it related to being apart from you, to sibling rivalries that may be amped up? You won't always be able to tease out a cause, but it's worth trying. In addition, do confidently reassure your little one that you'll protect them from any harm. Do demonstrate that the object of their fear is harmless by facing it yourself. Do role play if his fear involves other adults, such as doctors or costume characters. You may find a great trick that calms your toddler's anxiety, or you may not. It all depends on your child's temperament. In most kids, though, these fears fade at around 5 years old. Take a look at more videos in this series for details on toddler behavior, discipline, and
All right, so some great advice there in those videos from some other professionals. And so I'm not going to reiterate the things that they said, but some great advice. On number 8, it says, how do they express their anger? Well, kind of dramatically and spontaneously too. So some ways to help that is help them with feeling words, that I'm feeling frustrated. And also label the toddler's feelings for them. You know, you're feeling angry because, or sad because. Remember, anger is a secondary emotion, so find out what their anger is about. And sometimes they just act like they're angry, maybe not like this, but like they may want to hit things, and you know, and that's just, those things are very, very normal. Provide socially acceptable ways to release their feelings and their anger, like go run around the house 10 times, or run from here to there 5 times, or jump on the trampoline, or hitting your fist in your hand, or covering your mouth with a pillow and screaming, or whatever, let them cover their mouth with a pillow, right? Whatever you can find that will help them express their feelings, kind of like that doctor just expressed in the last video. Listen to them, try to understand why they're feeling angry, even if you don't agree and it's something that they cannot do. You can at least listen to them and try to visit and talk about it, and hopefully alleviate, oh my gosh, I can't say it, not have them not go have a temper tantrum. Sorry, my tongue's tied today, guys. Anyway, try to determine the underlying reason for their emotion and their anger, which I've already talked about. So the next one is about their affection on number 9. They do it the same way, spontaneously and dramatically, is how they're going to express that affection. And sometimes you just, they want to give you a big hug, then you got to let them. And other times they may be really angry at you and not want you to have anything to do with them. But that's why you wait to be a parent until you're never completely ready, but until you've done some growing up yourself, and that you have unconditional love for that child. Doesn't matter what they do, you're going to love them no matter what. The next thing we're going to talk about is number 10, and that's security objects. And security objects actually are a positive and an okay thing. American Academy of Pediatrics and all those in the field suggest that it helps to give them some psychological and some emotional comfort that they need, especially like at bedtime or in unique situations. And it may be like a blanket or a stuffed animal or a favorite toy. And they all may have nicknames for them too. I know I had one boy who had a blankie and kept it all the time. And just to know, so these are signs of a healthy and enhanced emotional and cognitive development. It's not a bad and a negative thing. Now, if they're dragging it to school like Linus when they're 8, then maybe so. I would ask, if we were in class, how many of you still have some kind of a security object, whether it's a pillow, a blanket, an stuffed animal that you still use when you go to bed at night? And how many of you struggle not to have it with you? You'd be surprised at how many kids raise their hand at that. And that's not a bad thing. It's a really an okay thing. We live in a pretty stressful, high emotional state, especially right now. And we kind of always do. And it's okay if it can help us, give us some comfort in such a situation. They say that it's an okay thing. All right, so imaginary friends on number 11 is also something that they may begin to have while they are a toddler. So not only are imaginary friends normal, they are extremely common. Researchers have found that about 2/3 of children have an imaginary friend or buddy or person or animal or inanimate object. I know, like, some of them can be like a 6-foot tall pink puffy teapot, so sometimes it's just something funny. I had a niece who had Gavy was her friend's name, and it changed whether it was boy or girl and how old it was and all sorts of things all the time for what she needed. So what imaginary friends help do is give toddlers a chance to exert control, and that's a really okay thing because that's what autonomy is all about. They also sometimes need a scapegoat or somebody to blame for things that they've done wrong or their misdeeds. It also helps children have a sense of security and comfort and have confidence and bravery because they pretend that their friend is brave, and so it helps them to be brave, and it gives them some companionship, especially when they don't have any. So in situations where there's an only child or the child is very isolated, out in, away from others and not a lot of kids their age around, it's very normal for them to have an imaginary friend or several imaginary friends.
I only can think about only one thing, so I'll start. I have 100 imaginary friends, and I met them all in one day. Every time they come over my house, I get really excited. Adriana used to be a magician, but now she's a nurse. Well, she looks like me, except she has dark skin. She has red hair. She's a mom. I might tell you about Janina. She's 4 years old like me, and she just loves to play Ring Around the Rosie with me. I have to go visit them, and they only come when I'm by myself. Well, I think that's it.
So cute. You can see she's just making stuff up and being super creative, and there's nothing wrong with that. So if you want to set a place for them at the table if they demand or ask, then that's okay. If you don't, that's okay too. Just know that it's a healthy thing, and you don't necessarily need to feed it, but it's okay for them to have it. All right, another thing that becomes a big issue during the toddler years is separation anxiety. It's the fear of being separated from their parent. We talked a little bit about it with the infants. And so there's the definition of it. It's the fear of being separated from their parent. It is displayed, so you can write the answer here, by like a small little temper tantrum, screaming, yelling, and just kind of having a little fit, right? It occurs, is your next bullet, between 14 and 24 months of age, so during these toddler years. And why does it occur? Well, it occurs because they don't understand where their parents are going, when they're going to return. They can't comprehend it. Remember, they don't understand abstract things. So,
Bye-bye.
okay, so they were just kind of displaying that, yes, but let me tell you, that's the worst thing you can do, is to come back in, and the worst thing you do is just hurry and sneak out like that too. Here are some guidelines to help ease separation anxiety, and they work like a charm, and you see people do what that mom just did all the time. The kid has a temper tantrum or starts to cry, so they come back. So they start to leave again, and the child cries more and harder, so they come back again, and then they try to separate again, and the child cries even more and louder and screams even more. Do you see what's happening? That you're conditioning the child to kind of have a temper tantrum and do that. So ways to ease it, to help to make it better. One, prepare the child in advance. Hey, mom's going to work, dad's going to work, or mom and dad are going to go away on a trip for a week, or wherever you're going, prepare them in advance. The next one, explain to the child what they're going to be doing while you're away. This is why it's important for daycare providers and preschools to give information in parent letters so that mom and dad know what's going on. You can talk about it. Hey, today you're going to make a pinwheel. That's what they said you're doing at preschool or at daycare today, and you're going to read this book and talk about these things, and you can talk about that while you're getting ready in the morning or afternoon or whenever you take them. Also, let them know, this is the next one, inform the child when and by whom they'll be picked up. Now, you don't say at 3 o'clock. Remember, you use things that they understand for time, like after your nap, or right before dinner time, or right after lunchtime, or right after 3 sleeps, mommy and daddy will be back, okay? Make sense? All right. Do not prolong goodbyes. Don't keep coming back, and don't make it, a 15-minute thing, because it's just going to get worse. But what you should do is be consistent in how you say goodbye, and I would add to that, make some kind of tiny little ritual. I still, to this day, my kids were here just this last weekend, and when they drove off, I was putting my hand up to my cheek, and they in their cars were doing the same thing. Sorry, it makes me emotional. And also holding up the I love you, 3 fingers, thumb and 2 fingers, and putting their hand to their face. Why were they putting their hand to the face? Because it's the kissing hand, if you remember, we read that book. And I just did that with my kids all of the time. And with my oldest, we did this big blow you a kiss, and how long we could, and then hurry and blew it to each other. And his daycare provider at the time was awesome, and she would just help him do that. And sometimes I could make it a little more animated and make it 30 seconds, and other times I had 10 seconds. But anyway, that was having some little ritual or way to say goodbye can help them. And then the last one, explain where you'll be. If you can take them there, like if it's work, take them there and let them see. I don't know if you ever remember going to work with your mom and dad and seeing where they work and what they do, but that's a positive thing. If you're going on a trip, let them see pictures. Let them know that you're going to bring them something back, or that you'll FaceTime them and they can see the place, and just letting them know where you're going to be and when you're going to come back. Again, if it sleeps, and having a chart or whatnot. Okay, all of these things will help to ease that separation anxiety.